Good evening and welcome to the Beaufort County Board of Education Business Meeting of March 7, 2023. This meeting is being conducted by hybrid video conferencing, and it is also being live streamed on the school board's YouTube channel, www.youtube.com/at Beaufort County School Board. The board has just been in executive session and we are now back in public session. And Madam Secretary, is there any action as necessary or appropriate regarding the matters discussed in executive session?
Yes, ma'am, Madam Chair. I move we approve the superintendent's recommendations for employment listed on the February 1st through 28th, 2023 personnel ratification report.
Okay, second by Dr. Wisniewski. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
And thank you. Any opposed? And any abstentions? All right, so the motion carries, I believe, 10-0-0 with Mr. Smith absent from the vote.
11.
Okay, so you're now remote again?
I came up to my car to get something.
Thank you. Okay. Do we have any further action as necessary or appropriate regarding matters discussed in executive session?
Yes, ma'am, Madam Chair. I move we accept the superintendent's recommendation for the monthly adult education homeschool report for March 7th, 2023.
Right, second by Ms. Ingrid Boatwright. Any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand and say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Smith? Any nays? Any abstentions? All right, the motion carries unanimously.
Madam Chair, that concludes all of the motions from executive session.
Thank you kindly. Next up, we have approval of the agenda.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve tonight's agenda.
Thank you. A second? All right, Mr. Carlton Dallas, second the motion. Any discussion? No hands up. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries unanimously. We will now stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Please remain standing for a moment of silence. Please be seated. The media has been properly notified. Next, we have our student performance, and tonight's performance is by the Beaufort High School Dance Ensemble, performing under the direction of Teresa Baker Wallace, the lead teacher for the arts and dance. Welcome, dancers.
Wise men say only fools rush. but I can't help falling in love with you. Stay. Would it be a sin if I kept falling with you? I come flow surely to the sea, darling, so it goes. Some things are meant to be. Take take my whole life, for I can live, for I can falling in love with
Do you wanna be a poet and write? Do you wanna be an actor up in lights? Do you wanna be a soldier, fight for love? Travel the world. Do you wanna be a diver, pearls, or climb a mountain and touch the clouds above? Be anyone you want to be. Bring to feel fantasies. I want something in nature. I want you to.
all overdue, but now Billy's planning, voice and ABC, DVD. The East Coast family never skip the beat. While cooling goes out, jet black band, plenty of friends, and all the Philly states you can eat. I get cool, we used to dream about it every day. Could it really happen? Or do dreams just fade away? Yeah. Then we started singing that bass, the time too. If we started a group, then here we are. Taking it for you.
I wasn't on. Good afternoon, board members, again. Tonight, in points of celebration, we're going to recognize some state champions in our district, state wrestlers. So I'm going to bring our district athletic director up to tell you a little bit about this championships and what schools have earned those, and we will introduce you to those students in just a minute. Carlos.
Again, good afternoon to all in attendance. At this time, we would like to recognize state champions that young men, and I think we also have a young lady that won individual state championships from our schools here in Beaufort County. We have athletes being represented by Beaufort High, Battery Creek, May River, and Bluffton High. And at this time, I will ask the Battery Creek High School head wrestling coach, John Rutherford, if he would come forward and introduce his championship winners.
Thank you. My name is John Rutherford. I'm the head coach at Battery Creek, and I have the honor and privilege of introducing Gunnar DeGroat. Gunnar DeGroat is a junior with a 3.6 GPA. Just a couple little notes about Gunnar. He's a two-time all-region, two-time lower state champion, all-state wrestler, obviously a state champ as a junior. He's pretty tall. He had an amazing season at 26-2. His last loss came on December 7th. So he's on a 23-0 winning streak. As a career, he did not wrestle last year due to an injury, and he's already at 35-7, which is over an 80% win rate. 35 wins, and 19 of them right now are by pin. So he's been a senior or a leader for us the last couple of years, and he won the state final with a 3-1 victory over a senior from West Oak. So congratulations, Gunnar. Yeah. What do you want him?
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah. Is your family here?
Yeah, they're
Come on. Your family. Fair.
Yeah, you get it. At this time, we will ask Coach Link Lyles, the athletic director of Beaufort High, to please come forward to introduce your championship winners.
Good evening, everybody, again, and thank you for having us here. I'm going to have our head wrestling coach, Coach Ron Lanham, come up, please, Ron. And Colton, please.
Good evening. I have the pleasure of introducing you again to Colton Ferris. Colton was, you might remember, he's already been here once this year, and he was off of our state champion football team, and he followed that up with a state champion and state championship in wrestling this year. Colton is a four-time state placer. He placed fourth his freshman year. He placed second his sophomore and junior year, and this year he culminated his senior year after that football championship by going 33-0. And taking the championship home with a 5-0 victory over a young man from Hanahan, who he wrestled 3 times and beat him all 3 times this year. Colton is also the only athlete that we have found so far that has won 2 state championships in the same year. And he's also a 4-time region and lower state champion.
Ready? 1, 2. Thanks. Good.
And now we move on to Bluffton High School, and we'll ask the Bluffton head wrestling coach, Coach Neil Nutter, to come forward and introduce the championship winner.
Hello, my name is Neil Nutter. I'm the head wrestling coach at Bluffton High School. This year is Jaden Lawrence, our first ever female state champ in Beaufort County. Look at that, yeah. Stand up for you. Jada is a sophomore in high school, and she is an even better person, student, everything than she is an athlete. She's a member of the Interact Club, the student to student ambassador, Bobcat Readers. She's a two-time varsity letter winner. She's a member of the lacrosse team. She has a 5.3 GPA. I'm also a tutor, so that helps out. And again, she is the Beaufort County's and South Carolina State first ever female state wrestling champion. So congratulations.
Yeah, I'm gonna jump in the back, I believe.
Not me, her. Yeah, the tutor.
One, two.
And again, we would like to call forward May Rivers head coach, Coach Powell, to come forward and introduce their championship winners.
It's my pleasure from May River High School to call forward Isaiah Wysong. Isaiah was the leader of our team the last couple of years. We've been fortunate enough to be state runner-ups 2 years in a row and finish Final Four this year. And without a doubt, he would trade any individual accolades for team accolades. But fortunately enough for him this year, he was able to capture a state championship as a junior in the 138 pound weight class. Wysong has a 3.98 GPA. I am not his tutor. But I do teach, so maybe we can work something out and get above that 4.0 mark. But a fine young man, got a bright future ahead of him. And like I said, it's an honor to recognize his hard work. I think he finished the year 45-3 and region champ, lower state champion, and two-time state place winner, Isaiah Wysong.
Congratulations. Family up here. Brother. Awesome.
We'll start.
Ready? 1, 2. Congratulations.
Thank you.
This week is also National Social Worker Week. To celebrate and honor school social workers across South Carolina, Governor McMaster has proclaimed March 5th through 11th as School Social Worker Week. We are fortunate in Beaufort County to have such a dedicated group of professionals to work with our students. And if you watch the screens, you will be able to learn more about what school social workers do and why they're such a vital component to our school's success. I think we have a video. Not school social worker. Okay.
So would you like me to go ahead and read the proclamation?
Yes, our board
Okay.
chair will read a proclamation into record.
So this is the State of South Carolina Governor's Proclamation. Whereas school social workers are trained professionals who work with administrators, teachers, counselors, psychologists, nurses, speech and language pathologists, and other staff to identify and address problem areas and help make school a positive and successful experience for all students. And whereas serving as a vital link between the school, home, and community, school social workers help parents understand and meet their children's social, emotional, physical, and mental health needs, assist schools and teachers with student assessments and behavior management, and coordinate community resources to help improve the quality of life for students and their families. And whereas the School Social Work Week honors school social workers in South Carolina for their commitment to ensuring that our young people get the most out of their educational opportunities by overcoming barriers to learning. Now, therefore, I, Henry McMaster, Governor of the great state of South Carolina, do hereby proclaim March 5th through the 11th, 2023, as School Social Work Week throughout the state, and encourage all South Carolinians to show appreciation to school social workers for their dedication to the well-being of our children. And then there's a seal and his signature. So I would ask if there are any school social workers present in this audience to please stand so we can recognize you. None being present, we will still give an applause to all of our school social workers.
There's one in the back. There's one in the back of the room. If she would come forward, Ms. Moore. If we come forward.
Ms. Murray is our lead district social worker, and she also manages our health component for students as well as adults. Now we'd like to recognize our school counselor of the year. School counselors are vital members of the educational team. They help students in the areas of academic achievement, personal and social development, and career development, helping to ensure that today's students become tomorrow's productive and well-adjusted adults. First, I'd like to commend the district's middle school counselor of the year, Takira Brown from Robert Smalls International Academy. Is Takira here? High school counselor of the year is Laura Marshall from May River High School. Is Laura here? And rookie school counselor of the year, Ariel Young from Port Royal Elementary School. Our district's counselor of the year is Broad Rivers Elementary School counselor, Candace Washington. Will you stand, Candace? Is she here? Now I believe we have a video for the counselors.
A surprise celebration. Students are cheering loudly at Broad River Elementary School as Candace Washington is announced as the Beaufort County School District's School Counselor of the Year. Washington was moved to tears as the students congratulated her.
It was very overwhelming because I'm a very shy person. So excitement kind of makes me a little nervous, but seeing all my babies excited made me excited.
Washington has been a school counselor for 4 years, and she really enjoys working with the children.
For me, my best accolades come from my kids, my students. Going into a classroom, seeing how excited they are to see me in the hallway, asking me about my day, me asking them about their day. That's kind of my best accolades.
Washington was born and raised right here in Beaufort County, and her principal is excited she's at the school, helping to make a difference in children's lives.
She has such a calm spirit in nature. And being a local girl, I just think, she has a different kind of buy-in and desire and passion to just ensure the safety and security of children in the Lowcountry, especially Beaufort County. I couldn't ask for a better counselor. She works well with teachers. She deals with a very persistent principal with high expectations. So I think she's a pretty great girl.
The district also recognized the High School Counselor of the Year, May River High School's Laura Marshall, the Middle School Counselor of the Year, Robert Smalls International Academies, Takaria Brown, and Port Royal Elementary Schools, Ariel Young, as the Rookie School Counselor of the Year. For the Beaufort County School District, Ramos.
Thank you. Thank you again.
So I'm going to ask Principal of Broad River Elementary School, Mrs. Constance Goodwine Lewis, to introduce us to Ms. Washington.
Good evening. Thank you, Ms. Walton, for this opportunity. Thank you to our school board and other chief officers for our district. It is my absolute pleasure to stand before you and introduce you to the extraordinary, amazing Miss Kandasi Washington. She is the school counselor of the best school in the world, Broad River Elementary, home of the Starfish. And as I said in the video, she does a phenomenal job. She puts up with me. I'm very persistent and I want what's best for our babies, and so does she. So when you have a staff behind you as a leader that's in alignment with your vision and has the best interest of children, you can't ask for more. So I am so elated that she has been bestowed this honor. And I know she's probably going to be like, really, Miss Lewis? I'm going to scoot over and let her just say a few words, Kandasi, just a few words. It's your day. It's your day. Good evening, everyone. Well, first, I want to thank Ms. Walton again for the opportunity, the board members. I know I look a little bit different, but this is Ms. Washington. I wear a different color here to school with everything. So I just want to thank you guys again. I love the kids at Broad River. They're amazing. We have some talented kids at our school. So we actually have a wreath celebration that's going to be happening Friday. So if you're not doing anything, please come on out to see the wonderful things that we're kind of doing at Broad River. Okay. Y'all have a good day.
Ready? 1, 2.
Our last point of celebration this evening is the DAR contest winner. The Daughters of the American Revolution American History Essay Contest was established to encourage young people to research about our nation's history and to develop comprehensive essays that relate specifically to historical content. I'm happy to announce we have an essay contest winner at both the regional and state levels. Here to introduce his essay writer is H.E. McCracken's middle school principal, Mr. Ryan Millen.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Mr. Milling, Principal H.E. McCracken Middle School. I have Lincoln Benson with me. Ms. Walton has already given you all a little information about the DAR writing contest. So I'll just go to with Lincoln. Lincoln Benson's entry was selected by the local DAR chapter as the best essay for grade 8. Upon submission at the state level, the state DRA agreed that Lincoln's best met the criteria and awarded him the prize for the best essay in the state. It was no surprise to those who have had the pleasure to work with Lincoln that he would excel in this type of contest because Lincoln is able to combine his love of history, his diligence, and his unique sense of humor to create an entry that would wow the judges. As the state winner, Lincoln will be in contention for the national award, as well should he advance through the regional area competition. Lincoln is a student who has always demonstrated true leadership and excellent both in and out of the classroom. We couldn't be prouder of Lincoln, and we are fortunate to have students like him walk in our halls each day. So Lincoln Benson, our DAR winner.
Madam Chair, this concludes our points of celebration.
Thank you. And congratulations to everyone that was recognized. Next up, we have our first session of public comments. And we always do the people that are in person before we go to the phone and see if anybody's participating via phone. Just briefly, if you are participating, you've agreed to follow the rules for speaking, and I will just summarize them. You need to confine your comments to issues within the domain of the board. You need to be respectful of others. You are not going to agree with everything that somebody else says. Do not exceed 3 minutes. There'll be a visible and audible timing device. You may not yield your time to someone else. And that's basically it. So first up, we have Isabella Troy, who will be speaking about book banning.
All right, so hi, I'm a senior at Battery Creek, and I'm a member of DALO, which is the Diversity Awareness Youth Literacy Organization for the people that don't know. Last week, DALO went to Wilbranch Elementary School, and we read to the students. Whenever I was in elementary school, nobody read to me outside of the boring textbooks. Please take that as a hint. Okay. All right. And it wasn't until late middle school that I truly loved books outside of the Magic Tree House series. The elementary students and the high school students from DALO had never met each other before that night, but none of that mattered because we were all there to read. And that's the power of books, unity. Books tear down invisible barriers that have been put up by society. Why do you think that when people read the Bible, they can come together through church? When people read the Bible, they can come together as one, regardless of race, nationality, sexual orientation, or physical appearance, or at least that's the power that I see within it. Vilifying books won't solve actual issues at hand. We could be putting this energy, time, and money. I mean, my mom always told me that time is money. So into ending hunger or homelessness in our community. We could be doing community outreaches like DALO has done by reading to the younger kids, or we could be focused on unifying our community rather than dividing it. Books are not here to cause division. They are here to bring understanding and perspective. We can only see the world through our own eyes. And because of that, we can lack empathy for others. And there are very few ways to gain empathy, but reading is definitely high on the list. I understand finding some of these topics hard to read, but I think we have to remind ourselves that these are real things that happen to real people. And if as a whole, we want to put an end to these horrific topics, then we need to make an effort toward ending all types of suffrage. I mean, when you have a weed growing in your garden, cutting the stem, it won't solve the problem. It'll delay the problem, yes, but the weeds will keep coming back until you get it at the root. So digging up these problems at the root, and we need to stop trying to cut them at the stem. In history, banning books never had good outcomes. The future that I envision is full of well-rounded, empathetic, educated people. Education is the building blocks to a successful society, and education starts here with us as one. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Elizabeth Foster, who will be speaking on reducing the number of books reviewed.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Foster, and I'm a senior at Beaufort Academy. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you all. So tonight, the board will be discussing a request for the amount of books reviewed in each session to be cut from 10 to 5 in an effort to lessen the stress for school board members trying to read every book as they undergo review. In responding to this suggestion, I would first like to give you all a glimpse into the lives of the students who have been sacrificing their time to advocate at these meetings. I, for example, lead 7 student activities and organizations outside of school. I'm currently enrolled in 4 AP classes. I tutor students a minimum of 4 times a week. I'm actively working on college applications and scholarship essays. Some days I get to school at 7:45 a.m. and do not leave until after 8 p.m. Tomorrow, I will leave my house at 6:30 a.m. to spend my day at the South Carolina State House fighting for basic human rights for transgender youth. On top of this, I'm spending approximately 7 hours every other week that I don't really have to convince a bunch of adults that reading a book will not in fact make me more susceptible to drug addiction, pedophilia, alcoholism, rape, gender dysphoria, or any of the other outlandish and unsubstantiated claims that have been made. The request to cut the number of books reviewed at a time is intended to make this process easier for members of the school board who are having difficulty finding time to read the books in the time allotted. I acknowledge the time it takes to mindfully read a book, and I do appreciate the attempts to go about this process as knowledgeably as possible, a trend we haven't often seen thus far. However, when considering this request, please consider the other people who are currently being inconvenienced by the proposed book bans and the effect this change in procedure would have in doubling the time it takes to review these 97 titles. Consider the countless lives in our community that were upended the minute it was announced that censorship efforts were being made in Beaufort County. Consider the hours that already overworked students, educators, and community members are devoting to pleading that you return these books to library bookshelves. And consider the thousands of students who are being deprived of their freedom to choose which books to read each minute you draw out this already lengthy process. In closing, we cannot temporally or fiscally afford to double the time it will take to review the 71 remaining books simply because a board member, who I'll remind you isn't even meant to be involved in this process at all, feels the 10 books is too many to read in the time frame offered. Considering the board member proposing this change in procedure is endorsed by Moms for Liberty, the organization behind book censorship efforts across the country, how can we be sure this request isn't just another strategy to keep books off of the shelves for as long as possible? If the review committees continue completing the tasks they've been assigned, there should be no reason to alter the process to accommodate the school board under the assumption that every book the committees agree to return will subsequently be appealed and submitted to the board for a final vote. While this proposal may have been well-intentioned, I ask you all to fully understand its numerous consequences before making a decision that may provide relief to one board member at the expense of the students, educators, and the community you swore an oath to serve. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Patrick Good speaking on book bans.
Hi, I'm Patrick Good. I'm a sophomore at Beaufort Academy. One day in English, we were given an essay, a research essay about a modern conflict. Our teacher wrote a list on the board, and one of those was the US and Iran. Somebody in our class made a stereotypical comment based on true stereotypes, and the next day our teacher asked us how many of us have actually met a Muslim. I was the only one that raised my hand, and it is because I was the only one in that class that had lived outside Beaufort. I had lived in Connecticut near New York City and had been in a class with multiple Muslims in that class. Although Beaufort is a town and county with a very high African American population and Hispanic population, and there's a culture unlike any that I've been able to see in Connecticut, we are lacking in Asian and Muslim populations. South Carolina is 43rd in Asian population, 40th in Muslim population. Beaufort has a Muslim population of less than 0.1% and an Asian population of around 1%. With populations this low, it's very easy for stereotypes to bloom. And a majority of these books that are up for bans have characters of Asian, Muslim, or main characters of different sexual identities. This shows how these books show that how people are more than just a race, gender, or sexual orientation and are living people too. It'll diminish the stereotypes that are blossoming in our community and help combat them.
Thank you. Next, we have Madeline Conford, who will speak on book bans.
Good evening, and thank you for giving me this time to talk. I'm here today to speak about the book bans and their appeals. I have shown up to multiple school board meetings in which appeals have been placed on the books that were decided to go back into circulation. And the one question that I can't seem to answer is why? Why are these appeals necessary? What is the purpose of these appeals? The review board is randomly selected with a diverse distribution of community members who thoroughly read the books while comparing its contents to the AP or honors curriculum. So it can be assumed that these decisions they make are educated ones. Thus, I can't seem to wrap my head around the fact that we are facing another round of appeals tonight, all based on the fact that the people who appealed these decisions didn't like what the review board ruled. I believe that the appeal process is being taken advantage of because appeals shouldn't be based on whether you agree with the decision or not. For instance, let's take a look at appeals in the US government. I recently learned about appellate courts in my AP government class. Appellate courts do not retry cases, but simply review the trial and ensure that the proceedings were fair to both parties and followed and applied the proper law. Most grounds for making appeals in appellate courts are that the dissatisfied side states that the trial was conducted incorrectly or that some law was broken in the process of the trial. In the US court system, you don't get to appeal decisions because you don't like them and you don't like that things didn't go your way. I don't think that our appeal process should be any different. If you are going to appeal a book, you should have solid reasoning behind it, like possibly appealing the decision of 19 minutes because there were only 3 committee members present who voted to remove the book from the shelves out of the standard 7. The people who started the whole process of these book bans are now prolonging its effects and wasting more time and money simply because they don't like the outcome. The hypocrisy in starting this whole mess and then appealing decisions when things don't go your way is frustrating to see as a student, and I know it must be frustrating for you all too. If the review board follows the policies put in place to make an informed decision, then I believe there is no reason for appeals to be made. Maybe instead of making appeals, they could listen to the students who are here tonight to voice their minds. If they want to help children, as they claim, it might be worth it to listen to those of us who are actually affected by these book bans. There is a simple solution to this problem and is not solved by appeals being made the second that reviews are complete. The solution is in utilizing processes that are already in place, like the opt-out form. If you are truly dissatisfied with the review board's decisions, don't prolong this process by abusing the system. Rather, use the tools that are at your disposal and are fair for all children. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next, we have Millie Bennett, also speaking on book bans.
Good evening, my name is Millie Bennett. On October 4th, 2022, I celebrated my 18th birthday. On October 5th, 2022, around 9 a.m., the Beaufort High School intercom crackled to life and a panicked voice rang through the hallways, telling us we were going into lockdown. It took us a moment to respond as we had been reading Hamlet and were enjoying our mutual amusement with each other's performances. While we quickly fell into the routine we've been following for close to 12 years, this time felt different. Something in the voice on the intercom relayed a gravity that we had not heard before. Move the desks, barricade the door, lock it and tie it shut in case the lock doesn't hold. Turn off the lights, sit down, shut up, and send a text to your parents to tell them what is happening, though none of us really knew what was happening. All of us huddled in the corner of the room with 2 students brave enough to hold our only defenses, a baseball bat and a can of expired wasp spray. I sat with 2 friends in a small circle, each of us holding the other's hand. My best friend squeezed my hand so tight I could see it turning white, but I didn't tell her to stop. The only break our hands were afforded was when we would let go to text our parents, anxious to give them updates that yes, we were alive, but there had been ominous shouts and pounding footsteps in what was supposed to be an empty hallway. Eventually, the news came. The threat had been fake, an orchestrated event that had happened to schools across the entire country. There hadn't been any danger, but my body didn't seem to get the message. Aching and tired, I was still exhausted the next morning as I walked back into my English class, ready to revisit Hamlet. My teacher tried her best to provide us with a sense of normalcy. However, the terror of the day before was repeated as a student had brought a weapon to school that day in a misguided attempt at self-defense, and we found ourselves back in lockdown. This will happen again and again and again, as has been the pattern since the Columbine shooting in April of 1999. No one in our English classroom was surprised by what had happened that day. Terrified, but not surprised. Our childhoods have been steeped in the grim reality of active shooter drills in dark, locked classrooms. While my friends and I continue to work to promote literacy in our community and to ensure that our younger peers will have access to books that will help them to navigate this often violent world, the complainants are using social media to flippantly glorify the things that actually harm the most children in South Carolina: guns. Where is their concern for the safety of students when it comes to gun violence? How does banning a book while joyfully waving a gun make us any safer? When we are this familiar with school shootings, why are the books that detail these horrifying experiences being censored? 19 Minutes has been effectively banned in Beaufort County schools. This book is about a school shooting, and I do not believe that I am too young for this book. I do not believe that any of our middle and high school students are too young for this book, because we already know. We deeply know about the violence that has happened in our schools. What this book offers us is the ability to work through what we have lived through, yet it is being taken off of our shelves after an incomplete review committee declared that it was not appropriate for us. In reality, there is no book more appropriate or essential to us. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Claire Bennett. Her topic is the literary community and intellectual freedom.
Good evening. As a bibliophile, much of my life revolves around books. My daily work is centered around books, and much of my free time is spent reading books and attending literary events. Many of my friends are also bibliophiles, and much of our time together revolves around bookish activities. Lately, my book-loving friends and I have been working together to fight censorship and defend intellectual freedom here in our Beaufort County schools. We are what you might call the literary community of Beaufort. Bookish people do bookish things in the exact same way that people who love golf or tennis spend their time doing those things that they love with others who have the same interests. We all understand this to be true. People with similar interests are often drawn to each other, and subsequently they organically form small communities. There is nothing inherently nefarious about the creation of these small communities. They are simply the natural extension of relationships that are formed between individuals with shared values, as over time they become communities of both interest and action. Within the framework of a larger community, these smaller groups are often where the true work of improvement occurs, and it is the focus of that work that determines a community's worth. From book drives to literacy initiatives, from education symposiums to author events, the literary community of Beaufort has long been a vibrant collection of citizens who joyfully share their love for all things literary with their greater beloved community. Of course, we don't only love books. However, it is our love for books that informs many of our other shared values, including a reverence for history and education, and an interest in the overall edification of the citizens of this county. From the list of the complainant's FOIA terms, it seems likely that an attempt is being made to paint this benevolent literary community as some sort of iniquitous conspiracy of actors, inappropriately meddling in the complainant's anti-book agenda. Just as passages taken out of context are being used to drive the book challenges, the activities of the Beaufort literary community are also being taken out of context by the complainants in an effort to intimidate individuals from denouncing their misguided and marginal political agenda. Every term that has been FOIA'd as part of the complainant's attempts to sow fear within our community is something that has been designed to amplify and celebrate the diverse population and history of this wonderful place. As the book challengers march forward with their censorship goals, let us be wary of any attempt to mischaracterize the edifying activities of the literary community as somehow improper or underhanded. The literary community of Beaufort is home to some of the most empathetic and rational people I know, including educators, librarians, students, authors, artists, poets, historians, clergy members, and parents. And this altruistic community engagement should be encouraged, not assailed. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next, we have Jason Mott. His topic is reducing book bans.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. And I want to also thank the DALO speakers. They are twice the student I was at their age. You don't know me, but my name is Jason Mott. I am the author of 2 books of poetry, 4 novels, including 2 bestsellers, and I'm the winner of the 2021 National Book Award for Fiction. So when I say that I am a man who cares about books, you'll believe me. I'm here in Beaufort tonight because even though I am a North Carolina boy, over the last few years, I find myself visiting this wonderful county more and more. In December, I attended my first Friday event in downtown Beaufort. It was a lot, but it was great. I began coming to Beaufort roughly a decade ago on my very first book tour. Never More Books and this city's readers, one in particular from the Daylo group, welcomed me here with open arms. So when I heard about book bannings, my immediate response was, not in Beaufort, and yet here we are. To cut to the chase, let me just say this. Banning books will not make the world's complexities go away. We all want to protect our children. We all want to keep them safe. That is why I write and read books, because at times in my life, I have needed to know that the world was larger than the limits of my eyesight, and books were there. And at other times in my life, I needed to know that the world was populated by voices and stories similar to my own, and books were there. From what I've heard here tonight, the children of Beaufort have the same needs. To ban books is to ban stories. It is to ban voices. It is to ban facts. It is to ban ideas and identities. And history has shown us more than once that this always leads to trouble. These acts will diminish these children, and it will not stop there. These acts will diminish us all eventually. Diversity of stories and ideas through books is the soil from which talented minds and compassionate hearts grow. Do not strip them of that future by banning books. Instead, give them a soil so lush that they become like these grand, sprawling, moss-draped trees that fill this county. And I promise you, the world will be better for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Julie Matthews speaking on books.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me to speak for 3 minutes regarding books. My name is Julie Matthews. I'm a parent, a grandparent, and a concerned citizen. After many applications to be on the book review committee, I have finally been on not one, but 2. I'm very relieved that my first book, 19 Minutes, was removed from the public school libraries. I'm still perplexed as to how it ever even got there, since it has a book looks review 4 out of 5. 4 is categorized as no minors, adult content, no child under 18. I am now on another book review committee for this one summer. This book is rated 3 out of 5 by Book Looks. 3 out of 5 is categorized as minor restricted. Under 18 requires guidance of parent or guardian. Through this book, words such as effing, blowjob, a-hole, slut, oral sex are used repeatedly. In my opinion, this is inappropriate literature in public school libraries and never should have entered the school system to begin with. Victor Ney, I commend you for having attempted to read the books in review and to have suggested an opt-in as opposed to an opt-out form. Thank you. Carlton Dallas, I totally agree with the opt-out form is entirely too basic. There are thousands of books in the school libraries, and it is impossible for a parent to know something about every book in the school libraries. Rachel Wisniewski, I agree, the opt-out form needs to be rewritten. Colonel Geyer, all I have to say to you is that I am not a supporter of you when you expressed at a past meeting that parents had the freedom of choice to homeschool. This is not an option for the majority of the school-age children's parents in Beaufort County. Furthermore, they have entrusted Beaufort County schools to provide a quality education, and as others have stated, the Beaufort County school system has proven to be a disappointment. To the young, eloquent speaker, Isabella Troy, I beg to differ with you with your comment regarding books don't kill. Excuse me?
Excuse me, the crowd needs to be quiet and allow the speaker to speak. Be respectful.
But also, I don't believe she can call out people in the audience name as well. I think she can talk to the board members if I'm correct, but not to the audience members. So could you refrain from that? Thank you. Appreciate that.
To the young eloquent speaker, thank you. I will continue past my time regardless. To the young eloquent speaker, I beg to differ with you comments regarding books don't kill. Guns do.
We have a procedure here. We will recess, board.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you about the book appeal. I expect that I expect that you will respect my First Amendment right, especially after Mama Bears of Forsyth County won a lawsuit against Forsyth County schools in November 2022, where a federal judge ruled that the school board's public participation policy is unconstitutional. I know that there are minors in the room, and normally I would not read or say things like this in front of them, but their parents think this material is okay for them to read. I assume that they are okay with hearing me say it. I'll now read an excerpt from Sold by Patricia McCormick, which is rated 5 on Book Looks for its content. This book was voted to go back into circulation for middle and high school students, meaning this book could be checked out by someone as young as 10. This excerpt is from page 120. A man with lips like a fish comes into my room and says, "You're lucky to be with Habib." He is squeezing my breast with his hand, like someone shopping for a melon. I try to push him away, but my arm, stone heavy from the lassie, doesn't move. "You're lucky," he says, "that Habib is your first one." I close my eyes. The room pitches this way and that. "You can tell the others that it was Habib," he says. I open my eyes, watch him squeeze my other breast, and wonder, who is this Habib he is talking about? "If this is really your first time," he says, "Old Mumtaz is a tricky one." He unbuckles his belt. Once before, she sold Habib used goods. The fish-lipped man removes my dress. I wait for myself to protest, but nothing happens. "Habib," he says, "Habib is good with the ladies." Then he is on top of me and something hot and insistent is between my legs. He grunts and struggles, trying to fit himself inside me. With a sudden thrust, I am torn in two. "Oh yes," he says, panting, "Habib is good in bed." I hear coming from a distance a thud, 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 and register that this is the sound of a headboard hitting a wall. After a while, I don't know how long, another sound interrupts the rhythmic thud of the headboard. I know this noise from somewhere. I work very hard to make it out. Finally, I identify it. It is the muffled sound of sobbing. Habib rolls off me. Then I understand I was the person crying. Now I ask you, is that appropriate for any 10-year-old? Mr. Campbell, at the last board meeting, you said you don't know what we are appealing. It's content like this that we are appealing. If you had read our appeals, you would full well know what grounds we are appealing on. Now we'll give you a count of the profanity, and the 9 books being appealed. Sorry. Get down to it. So in the 9 books, asked 61 times.
Your time is up.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Mel Campbell, school board quote, business as usual, unquote.
These aren't notes. I feel like a pseudo-sayer here because it is business as usual again tonight. The 2 words that I didn't write down in my notes that came through in the meeting so far, barriers and banning. Barriers and banning. And, you know, one of the words, barrier, was used quite a bit in terms of our athletes who received accolades so far tonight. You know, how they, you know, Jada, you know, breaking down a number of barriers, and Lincoln, of course, also breaking down some barriers, but becoming a writer and a substantial theme writer as a youngster in the 9th grade, 8th grade. That's superb. That's good. And those things are what we should be vying towards. I came here tonight very disgruntled with what happened the last board meeting. You know, one of the things that happened that was resonated quite a bit was one board member suggested that we look at the students from 0 to 5 and find ways to partner with the community and engage the community in developing programs that will enhance their early childhood learning. That was responded to primarily with a statement that the state does not require kindergarten. And therefore, you know, our hands are basically tied. And I felt like that was a dismissal of our charge as a board, especially in Beaufort County. Our role should be to do things above and beyond that of the state requirements. And we have the resources. There is a need. We are educators. We should go above and beyond. Look how much time we are consuming with book banning. 100 books. Okay, fine. Let's burn them all and ban them all. I mean, it can't possibly have the impact of concentrating on early childhood and some of the other things that we need here in Beaufort County. We're not looking at the history of the county. Some folks seem to think that we can blame the parents. Well, I beg to differ. The parents are who they are. And we're not going to change them. You don't have enough resources. So I beg us to get back to board business. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Melinda Henriksen, book review committees.
Good evening. My name is Melinda Henriksen, and I'm the parent to 3 children. I have a middle schooler, a high schooler, and a graduate from Beaufort High, who also went on to the Citadel and graduated from there and is now a successful accountant. We've been around the school system for quite a while. I'm also the founder of Families Against Book Bans for Beaufort County, which was started 7 weeks ago and now has well over 250 members. It's not an organization I ever thought we would need, but here we are. I've had the opportunity to serve on 2 book review committees, and I'm here to brag on your district employees for a moment. The book review committees have been exceptionally well organized with clear instructions and were effectively moderated. All members of the committees I served on, with parents, community members, and district employees, we all did our homework. We all came very prepared. However, it was the teachers, the librarians, and the district administrators who went above and beyond. They had pulled statistics about the book topics, researched the authors in depth, and came with printouts of our community demographics and detailed educational requirements. One of the librarians in my group even took the time to write a written book report in addition to completing the provided forms by the district. These employees were absolutely invaluable to our committees. As we were wrapping up at the end of the meeting, I asked one of the employees how they were being compensated for participating. Nothing, she said. We had to volunteer to participate. We are extremely fortunate in this community to have such hardworking public servants who truly care about our children. One thing we all agreed on is that the book review process is just taking too long. At the rate we're going, the process won't be complete until September. That's an entire year that some of these books will be unavailable to our students. One of my fellow committee members recommended that each committee be assigned 2 books instead of just 1. We all thought this would be a great idea. And it would be simple for avid readers like ourselves. Most of us read a book or 2 a week anyway. I asked the board to consider this option. The last item I want to mention is the book 19 Minutes by Jodi Picoult. It was recommended by a book review committee to be removed from the schools. Unfortunately, that book review committee only had 3 people participate instead of the typical 7. Hardly a committee at all. On top of that, it was a split vote. 2 people voted to remove it and 1 didn't. I'm requesting that this book have a fair review with a full committee. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. We have just 2 more, one in person and one on the phone. Don Timms on books and pornography.
Thank you. As stated, my name is Don Timms. And just for a start, I spent 21 years in the Navy in some meetings. And yeah, I know about pornography and I know about filth. And I'm a father of 2. I'm a grandfather of 4. They're all contributing adults. So something I did was right. Actually, something my wife did was right. I've heard here and through various news sources about how we're trying to ban books. And that's not true. We're trying to get the books that are inappropriate for our children out of the libraries. Characterize it correctly, it has a different tone. What we are trying to get rid of is the child trafficking kind of things, redeeming social value, bestiality, brutality, sadism, masochism, incest, rape. That's got no place for a little kid in grade school or junior high. Probably not for an 18-year-old, but 18 is an adult. If they can shoot a gun, by golly, they ought to be able to read what they want. Accessibility is really a factor. So let's let the 18-year-olds choose what they need. Let's make sure that we keep that kind of filth out of the hands of the children. I support the endeavor to remove the books and to keep them removed. Thank you.
Thank you. We're now going to the phone.
Speaker for public comments, and you have 3 minutes. Are you ready?
Yes, ma'am.
Go ahead.
Good evening. I would like to start by thanking both Mr. Dallas and Mr. Geyer for chatting with me at the high school this morning. I accosted them when they were there to interact with students, and both were very gracious. Once again, I am requesting that the board create a policy which is permissible under the ESEA for those parents who are refusing the standardized test for our children. Once again, I am requested that the online student registration be limited to only what is legally required: student's name, date of birth, and proof of residence. The way it is set up now makes it so parents click on things they may not agree with and legally have the right to understand, such as SEL and its surveys. According to one member, the board doesn't review the surveys before they are given and therefore do not know the content. That means they don't understand what is being allowed under the guise of SEL. Someone needs to take a long look at this situation. I'd like to note that when parents put an appeal through on a book, that appeal requires specific quotations. However, when we send them in, the school server blocks the messages because of the pornographic content. Doesn't anyone see the irony here? To answer the students' presence, we are not book banners. We appeal because these books do not belong in our schools and because the members of the committees are not diverse and they are not random. As for the opt-out form for the book, I've submitted the form. One of our daughters was still able to take out a book that contains pornographic material. Today, I was told by Mr. Geyer that pornographic material is an opinion and not a set definition that changes based on the person you are speaking to. If I read the material here, the FCC would fine the county channel. But not to worry, we can just tell them that it's the board's opinion that it isn't pornographic. And that's to get the fine waived, right? Wrong. Mr. Geyer told me this morning that the Board of Education was the government. And if I didn't like the policies, I should take my children out of the Beaufort County School. He also said that the only real way to get rid of the book is to sue the school board. I'd classify that as financial malfeasance, wouldn't you? Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that concludes our first public comments. Next on our agenda tonight, we have an update by the Community Project Review Committee 2.0.
Madam Chair, with us this evening to give you this update is Ed Burns. Our former Mr. Ed Burns. You remember him?
Mrs. Walton, board members, and everyone in attendance, good evening.
Good evening.
Now, as a member of the Community Project Review Committee, who tends to be the first person to recommend someone else to give the updates, I was drafted to give the second update. Now, so I'm going to do as I was told, or I was voluntold, I should say. Now, actually, it's been a privilege to serve on the committee with some of Beaufort County's most brightest citizens and citizens who are very open-minded. And Ms. Walton, I want you to know the facilitators were outstanding and they were very professional. Now, for the update, the Community Project Review Committee 2.0 first met on November 29th, 2022, and had 4 meetings before Mr. William Piero updated the board on our progress at your meeting on January 17th. Since then, we had 4 more meetings and have had presentations and discussions on the following topics. Now, I just want you to know all of the presentations were very thorough and some were eye-opening. First of all, we had Riverview Charter School. They spoke about the Riverview Charter Gym. Mr. Bechtold, the director at Riverview Charter School, and a member of his staff discussed their gym and the classroom needs for grades 6 through 8. Then we had a discussion about parking lots and driveways, where we saw needs at almost every school in the district. Many staff members are parking on grass areas, as you know. Spoke about additional athletic needs at both middle and high schools. Spoke about stadium expansions, which would allow our high schools to be able to host regional playoff games. Now, as one of the committee members indicated, One of the high school coaches told her that nice facilities and winning athletic programs motivate students. And a motivated student is a student who achieves quite well in general. So I absolutely agree with that coach. Furniture. I don't know if you realize that most schools have not had furniture replacements. And at our current spending rate, we are replacing furniture on a 64-year replacement rate. Now, 64 years is a long time. That's just a little bit more than the time I spent the time I was in first grade at the school in which I was volunteering in today, a school that was categorized earlier this evening as the best school in the district. And I will agree, that's a very fine school. So, in fact, I was telling some of the students I was tutoring today that my first grade class was at such and such location. Those fourth grade boys looked at me and said, "What?" I said, "You can't be telling the truth." "Oh, yes, the same building." Now, we also spoke about electric vehicle charging stations. And on last evening, we had a presentation by the Career and Technology Education Department by the director, Karen Gilbert. She's the director of the CATE program, the Career and Technology Education program in Beaufort County Schools. She outlined the current programs, planned program expansions, and the impact that it would have on facilities. And as you all know, our CATE programs are experiencing some amazing outcomes. JROTC facility at May River High School was discussed, and that's a new program for that school. And without question, you know that the JROTC programs are among the many flagship programs in the Beaufort County School District. Technology Warehouse and Imaging Center, Mark Shawan, the District Technology Services Officer, spoke about the need for storage and handling of all of the one-to-one devices for our students and staff. Transportation shop was discussed to be able to maintain the district-owned school buses and not have to change oil and tires in parking lots. Improve school bus storage lots. That's so we can get the buses secured and off the grass at multiple locations. Mobiles, we're talking about mobile units. This item is being removed from our list and moved to the 8% capital funding. Now we have 3 more meetings that are scheduled. Meeting number 9 will be on March 31st at 6:15 to discuss kitchen improvements as well as to get financial information from Tony Crosby. Meeting number 10, March 27th at 6:15, where we will get information on item pricing, and we will prioritize the list and finalize our report to the superintendent. And then we'll have meeting number 11 on April 3rd at 6:15. That will be a report to the superintendent. And in closing, our goal is to make facility recommendations that are in the best interest of all Beaufort County students. And as you have witnessed tonight, Beaufort County has some awesome students. Throughout the night, you witnessed that. Now, we're going to make the recommendations to Dr. Rodriguez with the realization that the recommendation must be within fiscal practicality. So I thank you for your attention to this matter. I thank you for what you're doing for the district of Beaufort County. Thank you.
Mr. Burns,
Yes.
thank you for stepping up to the plate and giving a very thoughtful, thorough report to the board.
Yes, ma'am.
I know the board members would also like to thank all the committee members for their time and efforts thus far. You
Right.
obviously have covered a lot of material. So if there are others present here tonight, could they please stand so we can recognize all of you? Mr.
Okay.
Smith?
Mr. Burns, just in questions, I've heard you give a great speech into what y'all are doing, but how are y'all topics picked? how are those at the end of our meeting, we may have any new agenda topics, or how is your format of your meeting? How is that chosen? Is that presented to you where you said, I heard you also said that we had Ms. Gilbert to come in and give you a presentation. What does that look like? How does that work?
Well, I think the different organizations in the district or persons that have specific needs have been given the opportunity to present to the committee. But in terms of how those persons or that process works, in terms of who is to be presenting on a specific night, I think Mr. Arding or Ms. Crutchfield would be better at answering that question.
Well, I was just wondering as a committee member too as well. Basically, is there also a point for that they actually and what brings your attention to come forward to bring a topic up? Because say for instance,
go ahead.
If I'm on this committee and I have a question going on, for instance, at Beaufort High School, what are we doing? Even if you visit it, what are we doing there, and what are we looking to put on the referendum in terms to that? What does that look like?
Well, what I'd tell you is the topics that we have brought forward to the committee all come from the facilities master plan. So if you look at the back of the book, I believe you all got tonight, and the list of projects, that's kind of the basis. We went over everything in there. We also went over the previous referendum and all the items that did not make it to the 2019 referendum that were left in phase 2. We have asked our committee, and Mr. Burns can speak on this many times, as far as what they would like to visit as far as schools. And I feel, I don't believe a committee member I'm aware of has brought a topic forward that they'd like us to address, but there is no reason that a committee member couldn't do that and bring that forward. And we'd be glad to bring that topic for, do some research and get that going so that topic can be brought forward as well. Anything you'd like to add, or?
No, I mean, you've said it. Yes.
Anybody else? Just a minute. Mr. Carlton Dallas.
Thank you, Mr. Burns.
Yes.
For a very detailed report.
Right.
One of the questions I have is how can we leverage technology to make the day-to-day operations more efficient, freeing up human time to work on high value items? An example would be the maintenance closeouts. Can we track a maintenance submission from the time it's submitted until it's closed out through technology without having to have a human continuously track it? And I'm not saying anything negative. I'm just saying I've seen major programs where you look at technology to say we're going to leverage it to free up our human talent to work on the highest value activity. So you could speak to that. That may help. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, Mr. Shawan is not here, but
Well, I mean, actually, he did talk about that a little bit last night. You want to summarize anything he talked about last night?
I mean, he did talk about the fact that, he does not have enough staff members to do the things that you're mentioning. And it would have been much better if he had the facilities, he had items, he had a facility in which he could put those items so they could become much more efficient with the time, more efficient with the staffing that they have. But beyond that, Mr. Shawan would have to speak more specifically to that topic. I don't know if he's here. Mr. Shawan is on Zoom.
Would you like to address that, Mr. Mark?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Yes, one of the things I spoke about was a need for technology to have a warehouse. Right now, we're using multiple areas of the district office building that's not really conducive to moving the amount of equipment and recycling that we do. And we asked for a separate space. This space would not only streamline some of the processes of rolling out new equipment and recovering the old equipment to give to the recycling companies, but it would also help with storage, not only at the district office, but the amount of time some of this excess e-waste stays in our schools We don't have a lot of space in a lot of our locations, especially south of the Broad. So the need to move that equipment as soon as it's decommissioned out of those areas and back to a secure facility as soon as possible is needed.
Thank you, Mr. Chawan. What I'm actually speaking of is a comprehensive program to look at the processes from initiation to until delivery. And look how can technology be used to track and input data. One entry in a whole massive organization and the information goes to several people. That will eliminate a whole lot of rework, manual input. One of the hardest things to do in an organization is to get people to move from Excel spreadsheets into an SAP type system. Requires a lot of discipline, but we led a project where we implemented SAP in an area that was quite challenging. And the key is to actually loop in, once you implement a system like that, tie in accountability to the different levels of management. So utilization, once you spend $300 million on a program, how many of your leaders are using it, and actually track that. So those are the types of things we're really talking about. And then that frees up our human talent, because I tell you, the teachers and the staff are just phenomenal. And you see them working diligently. So I'm just trying to clarify strategically what we're speaking of. And I'm not the resident technology expert. God, everybody knows that. So I'll defer to some of the other technology committee members for more specific detail.
Ms. Boatright?
Thank you, Mr. Carlton. Mr. Carlton, Mr. Dallas. So I think this is an example of a conversation I hope y'all are having. So this is not really a question, but this is sort of what I see as part of the process.
Right.
To Mr. Shohan's point, I think what he's saying is that because his staff is so tied up with all these disparate locations, it doesn't have enough staff time to do some of this other stuff. That's a conversation, but we're talking about building a warehouse and it's pretty mundane. We're talking about building a warehouse at the district for climate controlled storage of devices, I believe, right? That's kind of,
That's been discussed.
At least we're discussing the possibility of our storing them on site, 2 locations. I hope that you guys are having these kind of discussions and looking at here's what the district's proposing. And Mr. Shohan is actually the resident technology expert. And we're kind of foreshadowing my technology report. So I'm going to just bring it to a close here. But I do hope that when the district presents things, that with all of your voices and all of your perspectives and all of your backgrounds, that you guys kind of challenge them to say, have you thought about this? Have we considered looking at it from this point of view? Because I hope that the discussions y'all are having are lively and respectful.
Those discussions took place last night. Those discussions did take place. In fact, we are more or less listeners, not initiators. Okay, that's what the committee has been tasked to do, to listen to the presenters or listen to what we think, what has been given to us or presented to us as district needs. So our job is to make certain that we recommend a prioritized list to the superintendent. And that's going to be happening over the next couple of meetings. So we're still in the listening phase right now. We have not made any decisions to recommend to the superintendent. Let me clarify that. Right.
Mr. Smith?
I definitely hear you. Just and also, I have a couple of questions, but I didn't know Dr. Rodriguez wasn't going to be here tonight. But in the reference to what you just said, I definitely will need to ask. Well, I definitely have a question to ask him. But also in terms of the facility that Mr. Shoham is asking about, I remember that we had several board members along the way when we were talking about this conversation initially. We talked about having a technology possibly center, probably somewhere within the middle between from Hilton Head to St. Helens Elementary School, so a middle point, maybe somewhere between Ace or somewhere in Bluffton area, somewhere where we have a actual technology, because technology is pretty much kind of taking over the world. So we talked about having a actually technology school where it's technology, basically the school technology infused, and maybe, but I think it would be so advantageous for us to put that money in a warehouse where we can actually have some place in terms of that we can actually build to house those things that he's talking about that the district may need where we can get more bang for our buck, I think that we have to be cognizant of how we're spending taxpayers' money in terms of what we're getting. We want more bang for our buck. So, it's one thing it's good to listen to that conversation, but they're also, from my understanding, and I get back with Dr. Rodriguez, but I believe that also we're going in there and y'all are in there also because you're seeing demands from different areas that need to be brought up. Because sometimes they say four eyes are better than one. So therefore, y'all are bringing that you're bringing the four eyes to those tables that something staff may not see or someone else from a different community may not see that's in your community that you are seeing and that you are bringing to the table. So I'm just a little concerned with that, but nonetheless, I'm hoping that we're still focused. And I saw Mr. Campbell back. I guess he's gone, but I know he and I also as well was driving that along with some other board members about that technology facility because technology is ruling the world and we have to be able to have our kids to be able to compete. So that's just one of the things that I'm hoping that also that once we're talking about putting out this referendum, that could also be something that could be looked to possibly bring up as well. Thank you.
Yeah, we are listeners, but a variety of conversations have been taking place. Some of the things you're mentioning, the committee members, they give opinions, they make suggestions. Again, our major task is to listen to the presenters, but we also ask a lot of questions. We make recommendations and we generate ideas as well. So we're not just sitting there. I can tell you that. Yes.
Mr. Earl Kimpel.
Yes. We talked about a place for store equipment, technology equipment. For years, they're stacked in the hallway. We do need a place for it. We shouldn't be putting that off. We've been talking that for years. We've been putting it off. And I think we need to go ahead and do it and get it done. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. All right. I just want to remind board members that have not filed their 2023 Statement of Economic Interest with the South Carolina Ethics Commission must do so by state law by March 30, 2023. And I know a number of you have already done it. We will also have a report from our vice chair on the family literacy night at the Will Branch Elementary School.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We had family literacy night at Will Branch Elementary School last week. Miss Middleton and I and Miss Gordon attended, and Mr. Campbell. And first, it was started off. They were broken out into different classrooms, and the first classroom that I listened to was Miss Patricia B., an author of a child's book, who read her book to little children that came in from the school and their younger siblings. And to watch an author give her own rendition of her book and watch the reactions of the children was superb. We then walked into and saw our great students who came from the club, the reading club at Beaufort High and Battery Creek High and Beaufort Academy, reading to kids and having the kids read to them. And we had parents and again, siblings participating in this, where literacy was the focus. Unfortunately, we had to have green eggs and ham afterwards. But what was done and showed the community is, one, literacy is important. And it showed the teachers and the staff at Will Branch Elementary School that people care about what they're teaching their children that come in to the classrooms. And so it was a great time, and more to come.
Thank you for your report. We are now on page 2 of the agenda to the committee reports. First up is the Legislative Committee report by Chair Earl Campbell.
At our last committee meeting, we had Mrs. Story give us an update on what is going on within Columbia legislators. And some of those issues we've already talked about from our committee meeting before, and we will discuss that further during our work session. One other thing that I would like to remind us about.
You know what, Mr. Campbell, I think you're either your microphone's not on or not close enough.
Okay.
Yeah, much better.
All right.
Thank you.
Is that next year you will have on the ballot the question for voters so that they can amend the Constitution so that they can give funds, public funds, to private and religious schools. That would be something new that they will be talking about.
I actually was only there for part of the meeting, so I don't have anything really to report on. But our lobbyist did come. She went over a number of the bills and she provided us actually with some great explanations on different bills. So if you have a chance to take a look at that, I do recommend it. She also let us know which ones she thought had movement. So that was enlightening as well. Thank you.
Yes, the meeting was very informative about the legislation that's coming up. And she did cover the items that will be available to us, but also of interest, thought our district take stock in for the stakeholders. So very informative.
Any questions?
Mr. Dallas.
Yes, there's a bill, I think it's 3728. Was that one discussed?
3728.
Yes, sir. I think so. There's been a lot of public or community discussion about that one, so that may be one to take.
Do you remember what it was about?
It was a very broad bill. But
I know we have one 278 about talking about juvenile justice reform.
so I'll go back and try to confirm that.
Okay.
It's item 3728.
Okay, and then we can discuss it at the work session.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell. Dr. Woodson.
Thank you, Chairman Campbell. I also attended the committee meeting and it was excellent. And I would just remind the board members that on April 19th, which is a Wednesday, the South Carolina School Boards Association sponsors a day at the Capitol. And I would encourage as many of us that can attend so we can speak directly with our delegation. And last year, our lobbyist, Lynn Stokes Murray, joined us too. So I thought it was very worthwhile. Thank you. Next up, we have Technology Committee, and we have Chair Ingrid Boatwright reporting.
Thank you. So we had kind of a planning for the year sort of meeting with Mr. Shohan, and I was joined with by Mr. Carlton Dallas, Colonel Geyer, and Victor Ney. And we just kind of looked ahead. We've got, we redid the OE and we got that technology assessment. So we kind of said, okay, based on that, what should we tackle this year? And one of the things with tech is that when is it technology and when is it curriculum? When is it technology and when is it human resources? So it's kind of hard to sort of draw a line around tech. And I have to give credit to Mr. Dallas. He may not consider himself a tech person, but he had a really good way of framing the discussion. So I think we had a really productive discussion. And Sorry, I need my glasses. So we kind of tackled three areas that, like we had discussed, Mr. Smith and I have discussed at previous technology committee meetings. One was how we're going to approach the referendum with technology. And that really kind of broke into two parts. One, technology was an area that we really had to add a lot of stuff, had budgetary issues, and how would we kind of address that from a lessons learned standpoint. And then number two is what kind of technology are we looking at, whether it's a storage warehouse or a school somewhere in Bluffton, there's all these things kind of floating out there that involve technology. And so, we wanted to have a venue or a forum to bring those things into the board for discussion. And then we had another category, which was basically data. And this was really more of a CIO level kind of question, but Mr. Shohan gave us some good feedback because it is really clear from conversations with different people on the board that the kind of data that we collect, how we use it, where it goes, who's looking at it is going to be increasingly important. So we had a conversation about data. Then we also had one about technology education, which is Colleen Beck-Unvarsky, who will be coming to future meetings. So I'm just going to give you guys a quick rundown of what you can expect from technology in the short term and long term. We will be getting a final version of our disaster recovery plan, which is an important part of board oversight. And then also the state requires us every 3 years to submit a technology plan, not us, the board, the district has to submit one every 3 years. And then with COVID, they keep changing it, et cetera. So finally, Mr. Shohan's like, well, we'll just do our own until they do tell us otherwise. So that was great. So we're going to start hearing about that. Sort of, it's hard to do all this planning when you don't have any kind of technology plan in place. So in the short term, we'll start hearing about that. We're also going to talk about effective and seamless integration of our software. We're actually looking at maybe having a joint meeting with operations to look at all these different software programs we have. How is everyone using them and getting that information in one spot? That's a big goal. We're also going to talk about staff training for the various programs. We're going to look at how we can improve connectivity within the schools and among students. We are going to focus on ed tech versus Kate versus these magnet programs. How are we teaching kids skills for the future, sort of a STEM related? One thing that I am particularly excited about is Mr. Shohan said we're going to get together basically an inventory, a chart, something showing all the different software programs we have and who's using them. So for example, Power School does have certain modules that we're not using because we use a different software program. So in technology, it's either kind of a best of show or an all-in-one. And we kind of want to look at what kind of reports are all these different programs generating and who's seeing them and where do they go and what information is the district looking at. Because I think we're really at a jumping off point where we can step up sort of the data presentations. I don't know if y'all have heard me mention that before. I'm a big fan of data in a report. So that's sort of our long-term goal. So short term, we'll be hearing about state technology plan, disaster recovery. Long term, we're going to be looking at those other issues. And that's really all I have to report. But if anyone has other agenda items, they are welcome to submit them at any time.
Thank you for your report. Any questions or comments? Mr. Smith?
Well, no, I just want to put that out there. I definitely, in terms of communication and where this country is going at, I do see a definite need for a technology school in this district that could be district wide, and what that looks like and how do we get our students there. I think that is something that we, in terms of even I agree with what Mr. Campbell said earlier in terms of let's not wait upon getting the room that Mr. Shohan needed, but I think that is very important that we get the more bang for our bucks and how we do that and how we channel energy in getting that project done. In terms, I think that we can make it all work and we're not trying to wait on any of it. But at the same time, I believe that it's very important that we get a technology campus here, because right down the road they have cybersecurity. They're using the old Boys and Girls Club. So if they're doing that stuff there and you got kids who can come out of school making six figures, then why not make sure that the district we're offering our kids and also we're putting our kids in position to be able to be successful in society. So that's just something that I believe that we have the opportunity to do that right now. So I think that we ought to push that. Thank you.
Noted.
All right, thank you. Next on our agenda is under the superintendent's report is student achievement, the curriculum update.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Tonight, the superintendent has two reports for you. The first is the curriculum update, and Dr. Stratos is going to do that for you. And then after she has completed her presentation, Dr. Juliet White will give you a brief update on the guidance counselors conference that was held last month.
Thank you, Mrs. Walton.
Good evening, Madam Chair. This evening, I have the opportunity for Mrs. McKinsey, our Director for Teaching and Learning Secondary, to provide you with a brief executive summary and updates on our curriculum practices and some initiatives that we have within ISD. Mrs. McKinsey, please.
Thank you, Dr. Smith. Thank you, board members, for this opportunity to share with you some of the things we've been working on. As you know, South Carolina has moved away from content-based instructional standards, and they have aligned both content and concept skills in their new standards. For example, math now requires conceptual understanding of complex applications. Science focuses on claim evidence and reasoning and critical analysis of group characteristics and processes. There's also a really heavy emphasis on using data to support justifications and explanations. United States history and Constitution require students to make claims supported by strong evidence, make inferences, utilize multi-step processes in conjunction with complex tasks. They also have to provide multiple examples of causation, impact, comparison, and continuity and change. The Instructional Services Department has worked really hard this year to provide curriculum instruction materials to support our schools and teachers as we move toward these changes. As part of the curriculum update, we have started and have completed individual course learning progressions. They have been developed in science, math, and social studies. These progressions show the content and the skills from grades K through 12. The information has been shared with our school leadership, our coaches, and our teachers. This is a really valuable resource that allows our teachers to see the viability of their individual content as students move on to the next level. We've also provided content-related resources. These resources have been reviewed to ensure that they are in alignment with our assessment components, and those resource lists have been shared with our school leaders, our coaches, and our teachers. The learning progressions and the resources will also be added into our curriculum maps this summer, which will be shared with the public once those are finalized. Additional resources aligned to the revised assessments have been secured and provided in science, math, and social studies. The State Department of Education also provided us with data reviews and sample test items and units of study, all of which have been shared with our school leaders, coaches, and teachers. Evidence-based instructional strategies to support alignment were categorized and shared with our school leadership, our coaches, and our teachers. This process really began with a crosswalk between South Carolina's 4.0 evaluative rubric and Marzano's design elements. That work has continued, and it is now in the format of an instructional framework, which provides to our teachers those instructional strategies that meet the assessment alignment using Marzano's design elements. Professional learning opportunities have been provided in math, social, and social studies through the State Department of Education. Those sessions involved understanding the concepts and skills, a focus on instructional planning, and assessment alignment. Our science standards are in a bridge year, and professional learning opportunities through the State Department are going to be provided at the fall of 2023. on to some things that we're doing in the future. In April, we will have a boot camp for all of our end of course examination courses. The plan is for teachers and students, but this work will be largely conducted by our instructional services team, but we will also include our school personnel, so our leaders at our schools, our coaches, and our teachers. This will be specifically designed to review and prepare our students going into assessment. Also in April, we have planned a support program for South Carolina Ready assessments. This will be specifically for teachers, but it will provide them with materials and review items to reinforce the skills and content for our students. We have also began a monthly content-specific teacher and coach planning session in math and science. This work is going to extend into other content areas since it's been so successful for us. In June, curriculum maps will be updated to include a focus on those conceptual skills. Sample lesson plans will also be developed for each unit. Teachers are not going to be required to use the sample lesson plans, but it does provide a model of how they can integrate those new concepts and skills into their planning. It also will provide them a model of how they can use the viable resources that Beaufort County School District provides our teachers. June 5th, we will have an overview of the new science standards, providing teachers a checklist of what the standards will look like when they change, and to kind of give them an overview of what they'll be teaching next year. This is a viable component allowing our teachers to prepare and come back ready to teach in the fall. In July and August, course-specific professional development aligned to assessment components and to the district strategic plan will be provided to all of Beaufort County School District teachers, coaches, and school leaders. We're really looking forward to providing that. In January of 2024, we will have the 2023 review from the state on our end of course exams. We will have targeted professional development sessions in all of those areas. This will allow our teachers to really dig into that data from first semester, and it will allow us as an instructional team to provide support for any changes and refinements going into spring semester. We're working really hard to provide resources, curriculum, instructional support, model lessons, and really build the capacity of deeper understanding of our new content and concept skills. As we move forward, we will continue to focus on ensuring all teachers and all schools have the items they need from instructional services to support schools' learning communities. A large part of that is in our professional learning communities. A large part of that is personalizing the learning for each student. Thank you for this opportunity. I really appreciate it. I look forward to you joining us for some of our future opportunities for teachers, coaches, and school leaders.
Thank you. Hold on. Dr. Wisniewski.
I have a question that's somewhat outside of the grades that are mentioned here. You said this is K through 12.
Yes,
So my question, and I think I remember a few years ago, there being a conversation that there was a look towards aligning PK to RK, that transitionary period. And so my question is, will there be a similar presentation for that in the future?
Man, I will leave that to Dr. Stratton.
So we have been working on a stronger alignment through Ashley Hutchinson and Dr. Wisniewski. If that's a purview of the board, we could put on it on agenda on recommendation when you have your talk on your future items. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mr. Earl Kimball.
Thank you. I noticed you talked about the United States history, but you don't mention what are they going to do about South Carolina history?
In the state of South Carolina, what we have is in 4th, 5th, 8th, and U.S. History and Constitution. We call that American history through the lens of South Carolina. So we combined American history and South Carolina history in those 4 grade levels.
So there's no discussion about really looking at history period, because it is not, it didn't teach me the truth. and it's not teaching our children the truth. And that's the reason why a lot of our students and young people have the issues they have today. They don't know who they are. They don't know the history. I'm talking about the true history. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can you repeat those grades that you just said, fourth, fifth?
Yes,
eighth?
it's fourth, fifth, eighth in U.S. history and
Yeah.
Constitution. But I will qualify that by saying first grade starts out with that community piece, neighborhood, getting to know, and second grade kind of builds on that with mayors, boards, things like that they learn.
Mr. Smith?
Thank you for your hard work and everything that you do, you and your staff, and Dr. Scribes, same as well. Kudos. But my question is this will this fall under, excuse me, tongue tie? Will this fall under the Beaufort County school student in terms of that criteria?
This is for every Beaufort County school student.
Right.
Yes, sir.
But my question is more directive. A while back, we were talking about, I remember Mel Campbell and we were talking, we brought up the fact of that the district, we were so ecstatic and so happy about that we came up with what the Beaufort High School student, what that groundwork should look like. Is this a part? My question is this a part of that?
This is actually separate from that because these are state required standards that we teach. The profile, the reason we're so excited about that and some of the things that we've seen teachers doing this year is they take these state standards, specifically a lot of times in that 8th grade, 4th grade, and 5th grade, because it focuses on South Carolina. And teachers take that and kind of run with it as far as talking about the beautiful area we live in. And I think one thing that we see most often is talking about the ecology, the history, and the people of Beaufort County throughout time.
Right. And all that is good, but just to address the elephant in the room that Mr. Campbell was alluding to was that, and all this is, it sounds good, but as a little black and brown young man in South Carolina history, where can I identify myself at in the teachings of it? Because in the past, I found out as well to myself, I can't. So it's one thing to go under the South Carolina history, but where in that South Carolina history are they teaching Black history and the history of being a little Black boy? Because that's very imperative. Once again, we're talking about behavior issues and different things of understanding who you are. So where's that in this curriculum that gives teachers that okay to do that, and also just to not put it all on you, because I know there's a process. I do understand that. Then as a board, because we do have a delegated people who we do pay to go and work in the lobbyists. Excuse me. There you go. We do have lobbyists, not delegation. We do have lobbyists who we pay to get stuff in and get stuff done for us. So that's something that we need to work on as a board to help you manufacture, put that in there. Then please let us know that too, because that's why we have these meetings to figure out what we want our lobbyists to push for us. And that is something the board has said that publicly that we want pushed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Dallas?
Thank you, Madam Chair. A couple of things I'd like to share. Colonel Guyer and I were fortunate enough to follow his lead and participate in the student advisory that was at May River earlier today. And Ms. McKenzie took an inordinate amount of time to explain some of the details of what she just covered. And I really appreciate that. She was very enthusiastic. She explained it to a layperson like myself. And so even the parent who was on the public comment section, she had a daughter there. The lady's name was Angela. I didn't get her last name, but I had a wonderful conversation with her. And her daughter had a phenomenal presentation. And so I keep going back to what Mr. Otting is doing and Mr. Burns with the projects, because I think in the previous iteration, 1.0 instead of 2.0, there was a real structured communication campaign to take it into the community and explain to them the value of the impending referendum. And so when Ms. McKenzie was talking today and educating me, I wonder, is there also an opportunity to equip a communication protocol to help parents understand how critically important they are? because I think the superintendent said previously that he was working on a communication protocol. And I think the school system gets human talent and they refine it and improve it. I think the more that can be done in the family structure, in the communities, to prepare those students before they get here would help us really raise our performance scores. So kudos to both of you, what you're doing.
Thank you.
Ms. Boatright.
Thank you. Yeah, so this looks great. And, first of all, I would like to say thank you for the executive summary. I know that that's been hard for instructional services and it was really helpful for me. So I'm just, as I understand it, I like the science and the history, and it seems like kind of a, scientific method. You've got hypothesis, you've got data. I love all of it. Math looks good, but I just want reassurance on two things with math. One, this content-based to concept skills instruction, they have been doing, in my opinion, some very odd things with math that have been shown not to work particularly well. And I don't know, I don't want to get into some of the, so basically, here's the two things I want reassurance, that you're still teaching things like multiplication tables. And number two, that we're still going to have differentiation of advanced math at the high school level.
Absolutely on both of those. And just to expand a little bit, if I may, when you're looking at teaching a math course, let's say addition, when we're talking about those conceptual understandings, when students move into multiplication, rather than just saying we're moving into multiplication, is a real focus to say we're moving into adding addition, because that's really what you're doing with that process. So it's teaching them the concept, because when they get on the test, it doesn't say what's 4 times 6.
It doesn't? What does it say?
It's mostly word problems. And a lot of times they give the answer and you have to pick the question. Another issue that is really one that we're working on right now that our students have trouble with is they want to pick one right answer, because that's what we usually do in school, right? What's the right answer to this? It's not the way the testing is anymore. It usually says, pick 2 of the following, or pick several from the following list that are right. And our students they find that first one and they're like, got it on, right? So we're teaching those skills as well. Slow down, read every single question, all of its pieces. So it's just a change. It's a mind shift change.
Yes, of course. Yeah, thank you. Madam Chair, just to build on the second part of Mrs. Ingrid's questioning, the question about the accelerator, the higher level courses. We're having actually Denise Donica is going to speak to our principals on the 15th on how she was able to take her school where she had a handful of AP classes and through master scheduling, monitoring students' performance, right, to build that to now when you look at her list, 16, 23, 24 advanced placement courses. So that's just to bring that to your attention as well, that we're trying to build that capacity and understanding to our school leadership, as well as working with our school counselors and their capacity. We're very lucky. We have Latasha Middleton in the role as our district director for school counselors, and she's pushing forward with building capacity for understanding.
I appreciate that. And I just want to take one more soapbox moment is, statistics needs to be a higher level class as well, because that is the foundation of all the data and the computers. And calculus is great if you're going to, do some high level science, but a lot of kids are going to we need AP stats or IB stats as well.
Thank you. We are looking at that.
So couple things. I would build on what Ms. Boatright just said when I was reviewing this before the meeting. In order to do concept skills, you have to know the content first in order to apply it. I mean, like, for example, multiplication tables is, key. Use those all the time, multiplication tables. So couple questions. So this the course progressions for science, math, and social study grades K to 12 under your curriculum update. So that would not include, right, any AP course or any IB course. It would include at the high school level, your standard courses plus or college prep honors courses, correct?
Correct. That does not include those.
Yeah, because they would have a separate.
And those have a separate, separate curriculum and guidelines.
Yeah. No, I think you know a subject better if you know the basic facts or content to begin with, but then are able to apply them. And certainly that's what people do that are professionals. You don't just, say someone's blood test is abnormal. Well, what does that mean? You have to go that next step or whatever it may be that you do. One thing that I have to say bothers me a little bit is that in my 6 years, I'm in my 7th year on the board, and we have had so many changes in state assessments in those 7 years, which means that it's very hard to compare prior years in terms of achievement. So I'm curious what you think about it. Is there a way to get beyond that so we can focus on improving achievement when you don't have the ability to go back so easily?
I'm going to pick up on actually what Mr. Smith was putting out to us. So we do pay lobbyists.
Yeah.
Many states are taking a different approach at standardized testing. Let's recognize that standardized testing is a money-making, it's an industry as well. So some states are utilizing diagnostic testing, which we are required by law to administer 3 times a year. They're looking at an added value model. And I'm not speaking with regard to South Carolina, I'm just referencing other states. So we administer a diagnostic test in September, do that administer again in December, and then let's say in May. How did Mary grow at each one of those markers? And that is what they're utilizing to rank order and do analysis of learning of our students versus standardized testing. So there are some different models happening nationally. I can't speak to the shift for South Carolina, but what I can say is pick up the opportunity and have a voice be heard, because we should be teaching for students to learn and grow and have that inquiry and have that growth, especially in content areas, and not just put a rank in order that's utilized for standardized tests. And in some cases, it's blasphemy what I just said, but it is happening more and more in states within the country, ma'am.
So we used to have AP statistics. What happened?
No, we still do. We still do. But the goal is that this should be at every school. That is the underlying, if I didn't want to speak for Mrs. Boatwright, is the underlying current that I had picked up. What we have at school A should be at school B, and we should build that capacity of all our learners in order to excel within these accelerated courses. So that is the capacity that we want to seek to build for our students.
And Madam Chair, can I just say, I think also what I was about to say is that there's such an emphasis on calculus for the advanced math student. And really a lot of the computer oriented ones should be, calculus is fine, it's great, but you should, it's equally important in modern society.
All right, Mr. Smith.
You did, when you brought it back, you did answer partly of my question, but also just to take a deeper dive. I'm glad I gave my brain some time to saturate it in. Also, to bring it back to my point was that also there is something in state legislation, because I remember that a couple years ago that the Citadel teaches Black history year round. And they say, actually, there is something in the state that I don't remember what number it is, that it is a part of history. And it is a requirement that we teach it. And the Citadel was highlighted because the Citadel teaches African-American history year round. And I'm not sure where that article is, but I'll look for that. I will look for that article. But that article basically kind of reiterate my point in terms of what I'm talking about in terms of teaching and what that looks like. So I just wanted to bring that back. And Mrs. Dr. Scott, you kind of did bring my point, but you go ahead.
I was just going to say the real difference there is you're looking at higher education as compared to our level. But if you also dig a little bit deeper, we do have something that you guys have approved for us called locally board approved courses. And we do have African-American studies through that venue. That's something we have to develop our own. The state does not do that for us. So we develop it our own and come to you guys, and you graciously have approved that for us. So that is in place.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you as always.
Good evening, board members. I'm here to share with you an update of the Palmetto State School Council Association Annual Conference, which was held this past January here in Beaufort County at the Westin Hilton Head Island Resort and Spa. Counselors from all over the state of South Carolina were in attendance to network and share ideas and best practices. About 30 school counselors and district personnel from Beaufort County attended the conference. There were several breakout sessions that provided strategies and resources for creating successful counseling programs and systems of support to help students successfully achieve their goals. Jerry Henderson, former Director of School Counseling and current Crisis Prevention Coordinator, received the 2023 Palmetto State Advocate of the Year Award during the award ceremonies at this conference. The purpose of the Advocate of the Year Award is to recognize persons who have demonstrated their belief and support of school counseling programs that have had an impact on counselors and their students at the local, state, or national levels.
Congratulations to Jerry Henderson.
Yes. That's it.
Mr. Dallas?
Thank you, ma'am, for that update. That's very good to hear about Ms. Henderson and the counselor's performance. Is there a ratio of counselors per student in schools?
Yes, there is a ratio. Yes, and so we look at that ratio. I don't know exactly the exact number, but Latasha Middleton, our Director of School Counseling, is here, but we do maintain that ratio. And about a year or two ago, the board also voted for additional counselors so we can continue to meet that ratio there. So we have a pretty good ratio.
Okay, that's one of the things that I hear in the community, that more counseling to help kids sort of understand what the career opportunities are, particularly when it comes to Kate, because the jobs are paying so much and they don't require a 4-year degree. And we're not anti-4-year degree. We're just saying, get that first 2-year degree without debt.
Yes.
And then get an employer to pay for the years 3 and 4 and your years ahead in your accumulation of wealth.
Correct. So, yeah, so we do have that partnership with instructional services with Karen Gilbert and Ms. Middleton collaborate very well together to ensure that our students are getting those services.
Mr. Smith?
Just to go back to what part of what Mr. Dallas said, also, we have the director of guidance counselors in the house. I would definitely like to hear what direction, the reason, and I believe I was the one who asked for an update. An update that you gave us was information that's great for Mrs. Henderson. That's awesome. But in terms of what our guidance counselors and what's the goal and where we're going at with guidance, I'd like to hear from the director of guidance in terms of what that looked like, because that's very important. I've heard a lot of concerns within some time now about guidance, and graduation is coming. And also, I'd like to know, what are we doing in terms of preparing for our kids to graduate, in terms of recruiting, as in programs like going into ACE? What does that look like? What have we worked towards? That's the more of I want the more teeth update. Not that's a good update, but that's more of a highlight to what we've done. What my question is more, what are we doing 6 to 8 months, 9 months down the road, long term, short term? What does that look like? That's what I'm looking here for tonight.
So before they answer a question, I think that is a great work session topic. It would give Ms. Middleton more time to get that together, because that's something that I agree with you. I'm interested in knowing as well. So can we put that on our next work session so we can have that update, and it'll give Ms. Middleton the time to, get all the numbers and get everything together for us.
That's no problem, but that's what I was hoping for tonight, but I just put that out there.
All right. Thank you, ladies.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This ends the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Ms. Walton. We're down to board business action. Vice Chair Colonel Guyer.
Madam Chair, I move the Beaufort County Board of Education on March 7th, 2023 concurs with the findings of the January 16th, 2023 book review committee findings of the following book titles: Eleanor Park by Rainbow Rowell, Grown by Tiffany Jackson, I Give You the Sun by Jandy Nelson, Monday's Not Coming by Tiffany Jackson, Sold by Patricia McCormick, All the Things We Do in the Dark by Sandra Mitchell, City of Heavenly Fire by Cassandra Clare, I Am Not Your Perfect Mexican Daughter by Erika Sanchez, and lastly, Me and Earl and the Dying Girl by Jesse Andrews.
Okay. So the motion was just read by Colonel Guyer and Carlton Dallas second the motion. Any discussion? Yep. Dr. Wisniewski?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I recognize that Dr. Rodriguez is not here, so we might not have the answer to this question, but I was inquiring into the status of the modifications or changes to the opt-out form. I think it was on his plate last time we got an update. Do we know anything, or should we wait until next go round?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Ms. Boatright?
So I'll repeat that I think that there was a student here who spoke and said that, really our job is to make sure the process was followed. And I know my amendment failed last time, but I still think concurring with the findings is not exactly what I'm going to do, but I'll vote to support it because I don't. But on that note, I do think that a point was raised that on two of the books, one that was removed and one that was taken back, they only had 3 people out of 7 show up. And I do think that's a concern that you could end up, I guess, with one person showing up. I mean, at some point, there has to be a minimum threshold because that allows 2 people to be in charge of something like that. And I would think, obviously, I think in almost every meeting, we've had like 1 or 2 people out. But if you get, I think we should say like, there's a certain minimum number that has to be, because that is one concern I have with the process. And I'm still going to vote to concur with the findings, but I think going forward, I don't understand why, if this is a pretty substantial, and I know people in the community that have done it. I know people within the district that have done it. I've talked to them about it. It's a substantial commitment. And I don't understand how 4 out of the 7 people, 2 committees just didn't show up. I mean, that concerns me a little bit. I'm just addressing the empty podium at this point. So.
And is it responding?
No, but I'm throwing it out there to the universe to see what comes back.
Okay.
I'm not the universe.
But to me, you are.
I'm just someone has the opportunity to work the process for our system. My only, if I may, but for the 3 who were there and did read the book and took the time to discuss, I have to recognize that as well and value their time. So to say thank you, but no thank you, others did not come. And part of the requirement in the process is that you must be there to vote. There are emergencies that happen in families, and I could speak to effect with regard to this group. I know of 2 situations, and it's family matters. So I have to respect who is there as well. So I do bring that forward for the recognition. It's not an easy decision, but we have to take the value of those who sat at the table.
Mr. Smith?
Well, my question and that process, because I do understand exactly where Mrs. Boatright is coming from. So then our process question would be, so if the decision were to be uphold that committee's decision, then what would be the time framing, or what would be the process of getting that book back in the rotation to give it a fair chance? Or has it not been? We had this is something I know we're kind of going on. We're kind of moving this along as it comes, but
It's my understanding that the book would not be shelved for 5 years, sir, on the process.
yeah, I definitely have a serious concern if that's the case. If we vote tonight and the book won't be allowed to be back on the shelf within 5 years because we only have 3 people, that's a needle in the side. So I definitely could not support that.
Exactly.
Sorry.
Oh, the book's down the list?
No, I don't think that book was appealed.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Okay.
Yeah. No,
All right. So who hasn't spoken that wants to speak? Okay, Victor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a painful topic. It really is because it's very polarizing. Our community is on two very polarized ends of this. As our wonderful children pointed out several weeks ago, we shouldn't be voting on topics, voting on books that we haven't read. Trying to be the example of compromise. Okay, maybe we can keep the scope of the books down to maybe 5 or less to try to compromise. As elected officials, I believe that is our job, is to compromise, to find the compromise. Where's the compromise in the community? And I will, since reading definitions is popular, an agreement or settlement of a dispute that is reached by each side making concessions. Each side making concessions. The outburst today was not constructive. It didn't help either side. It only divided more and polarized more. If one of our wonderful students pointed out, we need to move forward as a community. Again, trying to be the example of compromise. How do we move forward as a community on this? Only taking one side, I don't think is it. I think there's other people out there that are smarter than me. Every one of my statements have been fact checked, so it's clear that people are smarter than me. And I'm okay with that. Because as a community, we can come together and find this. Only taking one side's opinion on this is not compromise, and it is not a community, and it only further continues to divide us. Thank you.
Mr. Earl Kimball?
For me, I don't think we're going to ever get the whole community come together on this or any other subject when you're talking about students, their education. It's just like folks say, well, you know, we are indoctrinating our students. Because no matter what this board does, there are certain people in this community who will always have a complaint. I don't care what you do. I've seen this since I've been on the board. And a very wise man told me one time, he said, people that you find always complain, they lead a miserable life. You know, and I have to agree. You know, I can understand parents don't want their students to read certain books. That's your responsibility. But you should not handcuff the rest of the parents in this county or in this state for doing what they feel is right for their students. I was talking to someone this past week, and they were talking about what it costs, how much money we spent, and I think I saw a figure. That money could be used for something else in the schools instead of what we are spending on right now, and the time that our staff have to take, librarians, you know. So that's where I come from. Thank you.
Ms. Gordon?
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, thank you, Dr. and this whole staff for what they are doing to make this possible. Also to the students who have spent their time coming doing their research, parents and different community leaders. I would just like to thank the committee. They are volunteering, say the word again, volunteering. I think Mr. Burns said today he was voluntold. But they are volunteering, right? Number one, which means they're not getting a paycheck. They're devoting their time and whether or not they can make any meeting or not. I'm not concerned about it. I'm just happy that they showed up. They're impacting us. I agree with Mr. Nay about what happened here today. And in front of our children. Same ones that we say we protect and that we're trying to educate. It was a thing today about something that they are passionate about as well. So Mr. Campbell also said, hey, not everybody's going to be accepted. Not everybody's going to be involved, but those who are, especially about this book banning, I do agree with Mr. May. If we cannot read these books, then we need to find an alternative, which is the committee who's read these books and given us their opinions. But we asked for. That's what this board asked for. So as Ms. Boatwright said, I may not agree with everything that's being said or how it's being done with this time, but it is what we have, and you need to look at that. Did they do what we asked them to do? I have a report right here that I'm looking at from this. Yes, y'all can't see it, but believe me, we do have it. So in short, I do believe we could be spending our time on money on something else, but however, this is what we're charged with today. And I'd like for us to get to the point where we can vote on this for tonight. However you vote is however you vote, but know that this committee came together. People volunteered to do what we have asked them to. Thank you.
See, who's, okay, Mr. Dallas and then Dr. Wisniewski.
Yes, again, as Ms. Gordon said to the committee, really kudos. Because they are sort of at the point of the sphere in terms of having to deal with it and what have you. So kudos to them. A couple of things I would like to note. One of our most important levels of the federal judiciary are the appellate levels. It only takes 3, they may have 20 judges, but 3 decide a case that is binding. So I don't have a problem as long as there's a majority. And so the majority wins. The second thing is what reassures me is that an individual parent has the opt-out. And in speaking with parents, you know, that's an option that I want them to have, and they have, with refinements as we've asked Dr. Rodriguez to potentially look at. So I would like to move forward with the vote as well.
Dr. Wisniewski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My colleagues make a lot of good points and comments this evening, and certainly, like what Ms. Gordon said, the committees are doing a lot of really important work in focusing in on a singular book, reading it, providing us with comprehensive reports. But I fundamentally disagree with those on the board or anyone that says that our job is to see that the committees did their work, because I don't think that's the question here. The AR says that the Board of Education will make a determination regarding the material, not the reports, not whether or not the committee's work was good, but the material itself. And so that's where I disagree. And we can all, there's 11 of us up here. We all have a lot of opinions. That's kind of the beauty and sometimes the pain of having this big board. So everybody's going to vote the way that they vote this evening, and I respect you all immensely. I hope that we can keep decorum in the chambers here and continue to get through this work, plug through it. But I just wanted to make the comment that I disagree with that. Our job here is simply to agree or disagree with the committee's report. I think it's in regard to the material in question. Thank you.
Could you read that AR again? Could you read that AR again?
Sure. It's regulation IS 38.1 Roman numeral 8. And it says, after reviewing the committee's report on the material in question, the Board of Education will make a determination regarding the material in question within 15 days. So it's a interpretation difference, I think.
All right, we ready to vote?
Yes.
Okay. So we have the motion displayed on the screen, and all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All right. Those opposed? Nay and Wistevsky? And Hay?
Correct.
Thank you. All right, so we have, let's quickly, we have 8 yeses, 3 noes, and no abstentions. Yeah. Addition. All right, so that, the next topic under board business action is discussion on reducing the scope of book appeals from 10 to 5. And this was brought forward by board member Victor Ney, and he touched upon that already some in our discussion of the motion that we just considered. So would you like to talk further?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, and trying to, I guess I already mentioned what I was going to say, trying to be the example of compromise, understanding that both sides have to try to give up a little bit, to have some concessions, understanding that if we're going to do this as a community, we have to do it together. I would like to at least try to reduce the scope to no more than 5 books at a time. That's my recommendation to move forward with the superintendent, to have the scope reduced to no more than 5 at a time.
Okay, so go ahead and make a motion.
Madam Chair, I move that the school board direct the superintendent to reduce the scope of the book reviews to no more than 5.
I second.
And you want to say per month or?
Review.
Per review. Okay. And the second was by Elizabeth. Correct, Elizabeth? Yes. Okay. Thank you, Elizabeth Hay.
Because I
All
am
right.
actually reading these books and or doing audio, audiobook reviews of these as well. So with work, children, so on and so forth, it has been a challenge on top of other literature that I read in addition. So I am all for decreasing it for the period of time in question.
Okay. Go ahead. Ms. Boatright.
So it's interesting. And I have tremendous respect for Dr. Wisniewski, and she and I get into discussions about interpretations of policy, and we're on the policy committee. She's the chair of the policy committee, so I defer. But what I want to say is, if we're going to go by the AR, what the AR actually says, the preceding sentence is, it's after reviewing the committee's report on the material in question, the Board of Education will make a determination regarding the material in question. So to me, what we are actually being tasked with is not to read. I mean, I think it's great. I've read a lot of these books because I have, teenage bibliophiles myself. So, I think it's great to read them, but I don't think that that is actually the requirement from the AR. So I would not support this motion.
Okay. Dr. Wisniewski.
I want to seek clarification on the motion. So, Mr. Nate, are you saying that the appeals that would come forward to the board would be 5 books at a time, not to slow down the work of the committees, but simply that when the appeals come to us, that we're doing on our end 5 at a time? Because the committees, each individual committee is only focused on 1 book.
Correct.
We're
Yes.
focused on 5 at a time.
Correct.
Is
5 at a time.
Okay. I just want to make sure it's not going to slow down the work that they're doing. It might backlog it when it gets to here at the appeals process. And I think that from a procedural standpoint, we would have to deal with the timeline issue that's in the AR. And so I'm not sure. Do you have any suggestions on how to deal with that? Because I think I understand what you're trying to do. It makes sense because it's more difficult for an individual to do 5 books than a committee to do 1. Logical.
Well, I mean, that I think that involves getting into the weeds with the superintendent as to how the policy comes about, or because where do the 10 books come from? Who generates the list that we're going to review these 10 books next?
Yeah.
Who does that? I don't know.
Well, I know they were originally focusing on the ones that were in AP and in the classroom. And I think we're through that part. And now we're just focused on the literature that's in the.
So probably Dr. Stratos could address that.
Okay.
I apologize. We were handling a few things. So the first cycle were books that were being held because of instructional purposes. Second cycle has been through availability because we recognize you have X amount of groups, 7 membership. So we go through availability of purchasing the books of what is available. Some books, I'll be very direct, are getting to the point they're very difficult at obtaining because they have not been in print for a while. So we're getting to a point that probably about 58 books as we continue going forward. There will be some areas that there may not be enough books in print to keep full committee review. And some books have not even been withdrawn from a library for two or 3 years or more from our libraries as well. So part of what we're going through as a system as well, Dr. Wisniewski, is the weeding process of books, reviewing circulation. And obviously that takes into consideration the norm of the culture of the community as well. But to go back to your original point, question is that not all books are as easily available. So we go through purchasing what we can get, what we can get. So that's a time consuming part that we're doing as well.
Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
If I can, I think that just the way the motion is written, I think that we kind of bind hands, unfortunately. I understand the intent, but I feel like the way the motion is presently, we bind the hands of the district in compliance with the AR, and the district is supposed to, ARs are supposed to flow from policy and with our governance model. So I'm not really sure what the solution is here, but I think it creates a problem for the district in terms of, and for us, in making sure that we're abiding by the timeline that's set forth in the AR.
So I would respond to that, you know, that as you point out, I mean, the ARs do come down from policy, but the board does not vote on the ARs. I just want to be sure everybody knows that. Public listening may not know that. And so we could have Mr. Ney or someone else amend the motion if they would like to try to have it comport more easily with the AR. But I do think, as Victor astutely pointed out, we're getting in the weeds here. And, you know, if this is, the board decides this, if this passes, that would really be the superintendent's job to look at this again and see, okay, well then how do we, I don't want to say modify might be the best word. So it does comport with what the board has directed him.
And may I please bring to the attention to the board, we do have a book review committee scheduled for March 15th, which is already a 10-book review. So I just want that point of consideration as well, ma'am.
Let's see. Did you speak? Who hasn't spoken? Who hasn't spoken?
Yeah,
Have you, Earl?
no.
No, speak.
The committee has a chairperson, doesn't it?
Technically, this is the board's committee in a sense. We do have a facilitator. We do, myself, I'm an observer to assure that we are following what we said we are going to do amongst the book review committees. But we have a facilitator, not a chairperson, sir.
Okay. So who determines how many books comes before the committee?
We looked at the amount of books to try to look at the timeline for the opening of the next academic school year.
Okay.
So that was probably the greatest. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so I think Victor might be next. Go ahead. And then
Right.
come
Well,
back.
Dr. Dow's just answered my question, is how is the number of books per review determined? And if it's just an arbitrary, okay, let's see if we can get it all done before the start of the next school year. As Mr. Smith said a couple meetings ago, it takes as long as it takes. So I mean, I'm not necessarily concerned about making sure that we get it before the beginning of the school year. I just want to make sure that we're doing it the right way. And I do believe, in my opinion, that we should be reading the books before we vote on them. Thank you.
Mr. Dallas.
Madam Chair, I'm not superb on Robert's rules, but is the proper term to call the question on this vote?
Yes, if we're ready.
Yes, I'd like to call the question.
Okay, so if somebody still wants to speak, we'd have to have now a 2/3 vote that says we're ending debate. One individual member can't end debate. So go ahead and make a motion to end debate.
If there are people, I see Mr. Smith raising his hand. If there are people who still want to talk, I'm fine with that.
Okay, well then we'll go on. Mr. Smith?
I was just going to ask Ms. Boatwright, where did at the same way I asked Mrs. Dr. Wineski where she got her from. I was going to ask Mrs. Boatwright, where did she get in terms of the AR? Where did she get that from?
Okay, so AR 38.1, Section 8, or VIII. Appeals process. Complaints wishing to appeal the decision of the Material Reconsideration Committee must do so in writing to the Board of Education within 7 business days of receipt of the committee's decision. Here's where the rubber meets the road. After reviewing the committee's report on the material in question, the Board of Education will make a determination regarding the material in question within 15 business days effective from the date the appeal is requested. So to me, I think it's great to read the book, but our task is actually to make a decision based after reviewing the committee's report.
All right, we ready to vote?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So all those oops, it just disappeared. Can we have the motion back up there? Yeah. So the motion is to have the school board direct the superintendent to reduce the scope of book appeals from 10 to 5. So all those in favor of this motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we have 3. All those opposed, please say nay. Nay. All right, and all those abstaining. Okay, so the motion fails 3-7-1. Okay. We don't have anything on our consent agenda. Future agenda topics, Dr. Wisniewski.
I mentioned it earlier when we were going over the curriculum update, the alignment of PK to kindergarten. I think Dr. Stratus said that was actually Hutchinson Field. See if we can get an update on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Smith?
Yes, actually, the update from Dr. Rodriguez about the hall monitors, where are we at on that? That was a board motion, as well as of tonight, Mrs. Middleton said that we will have a former in-depth report from the guidance counselors and where we at and where we're going and what does that look like from the director of guidance.
All right, Ms. Boatwright.
I'm not sure what the right protocol is because I think I told Colonel Geyer an operations thing, but the Schoolhouse Rock, how to become a bill. I want to do that with the work order. I want like a understanding of what a work order has to do to become work.
Okay. All right, Ms. Gordon.
It was on the table previously for a report about the discipline procedure. And I would like to see us do that. I think Smith said meetings so that parents could hear it.
So any announcements? All right. Next, we're on to the second public comment. So
I was going to say, I don't know if everyone saw, but I just wanted to say that also, since we said that we thank guidance counselors for the Guidance Counselor Week. Last week was Read Across America. Our schools did an awesome job. Our principals got out there and, they even asked certain people, and our community members were excited. Oh, they asked me to came out there. I just want to say ditto to all the principals, all the schools who did Read Across America. It did not go unnoticed by the community. Thankful, because reading is very important. Thank y'all. That's all. I want to put that out there.
okay. So we have 6 public comments, 5 in person and 1 on the phone. So first up is Ivy Zalai on book appeal and hall monitors.
Thank you again for the opportunity to speak. I'm going to continue where I didn't finish before, because I'd like it to go on record that the books that you all just approved to go back on the shelves, the profanity that is in these books. And as a total, the word ass 61 times, bitch 36 times, fuck 189 times. One book was 62 times within the book, and another book 53 times. Motherfucker 10, pussy 9, shit 139, with one book having said that 33 times. These words are prohibited by the progressive discipline policy to be used verbally or written by students. So why is it okay to have them in books available in classrooms and libraries? Having them available goes against this policy. I'd like to address the endorsement that was mentioned tonight about Moms for Liberty. Mr. Ney and Mrs. Hay did not ask for those endorsements. It was done without their knowledge. In fact, it was done without the knowledge of any local Moms for Liberty members, except the one person who did it. It was not me. Again, it was done without their knowledge. I was immediately able to get those endorsements removed from the national website because, again, they were not aware that they were being endorsed. Finally, I was going to address hall monitors, but thank you, Mr. Smith, for bringing that up, because I think it's very important that Superintendent follow through with the feasibility study that he was tasked to do, because our schools need the hall monitors. Our students need to feel safe, and our staff need to feel safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Patrick Good. His topic is apology.
I speak for all DELO when we say this. Thank you for listening to us, and we apologize for our laughter. We attend these meetings to defend, not disrespect. We all are very familiar with the rules as a result of our repeated attendance. People laughed in uncomfortable positions like being called out. Our actions were in good intentions. We wanted to protect a friend, and the situation escalated quickly. We can promise this will not happen again. We don't want our energy to be wasted by one rash decision aimed at protecting a friend. We have always been told two wrongs don't make a right, and what we did displayed this by answering an unprofessional and rude behavior with laughter. The situation escalated quickly, and we apologize for that.
Thank you. Next, we have Claire Bennett speaking on book bans and opt-out forms.
Hello again. During public comments tonight, a passage was read from a book that was stated to be inappropriate and dangerous for students. It was stated that since the students present presumably had their parents' permission to hear such words, then it was appropriate for these words that are allegedly incredibly damaging to be read in their presence. Duly noted. These types of book passages are admittedly okay for students as long as their parents are in agreement. To be clear, I don't have a problem as a parent with this award-winning book being read in front of my children. In our home, we talk openly and honestly about all aspects of life. We always have. Hard topics are never avoided for the very real reason that I know my time with my children is limited, and therefore my opportunities to guide them through the precarious nature of this world is also limited. Books about hard things are essential to my parenting approach because they facilitate deep discussions about hard things like sex trafficking, as is discussed and sold. Sex trafficking is horrifying, so anything written about it is inherently hard and uncomfortable. Because it is so horrible, it is something I want my kids to learn about so that I can help them avoid being victims of it and to grow to be people who truly understand the myriad hardships that face humanity. If you don't trust your school librarian or your own ability to discuss hard things with your child, then fill out the opt-out form. As a wise young woman recently told me, we need to stop equating being uncomfortable with being unsafe. And having been a parent for 20 plus years, I can vouch for the fact that much of parenting is uncomfortable. Additionally, I want to clarify that one of the brave students here tonight was indeed traumatized, not by the words that were read from SOLD, but rather because of the violation of the clearly stated rules and the resulting chaos. It is a privilege to address the board each time, and the rules should be respected. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next, we have Isabella Troy thanking the board.
All right. So as always, I really enjoy getting back up here to thank you guys because I definitely feel like you guys don't get enough appreciation for this work. I also admire your efforts to make sure that everybody feels included regardless of their beliefs. And yeah, I'm never the type to hate anything or use the word hate, but I hate that I have to keep getting up here and argue a centuries old argument. And I hate that these meetings aren't more upbeat. But more importantly, I hate that we're so divided. And I don't feel as if I'm in imminent danger because of certain books being in Creek's library. I mean, we just heard almost every profanity under the sun, and here we are, not a menace to society. So moving forward, I hope that we can have a future where we treat each other fairly, regardless of differing beliefs. Life is too short not to lean on each other. But of course, these issues are, they're way above y'all's head. But you guys not only listen, but you understand and act on it when you can. And support is not a gift that many can give, but you guys do. So thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Mary Foster on, her topic is public comments to board.
Good evening. My name is Mary Foster. I've lived in Beaufort for over 18 years. I have a degree in elementary education, and I'm a parent to two incredible children who both attended Beaufort County Schools for many years. You heard from my daughter earlier tonight, and though I wasn't planning to speak, I felt compelled to after the earlier public comments. Just as there is policy and procedure regarding the process for reviewing books that have been challenged, there's policy and procedure regarding public comments. Tonight, a speaker called out another speaker, a student no less, by name. That is why you heard voiced concern from many of us at that time. This is a direct violation of your own policy, and I want to thank Mr. Smith for calling attention to that. Thank you. The noise of the crowd is not something I would normally endorse, but it felt necessary to stop this violation of policy. I hope in the future that all public commenters will observe the respect and decorum that these students have demonstrated over and over again in their public comments. I also hope that you as a board will continue to enforce your policies and procedures. Thank you for the opportunity to speak and for all you do for the students, teachers, and parents of Beaufort County. And a gigantic, enormous thank you to those of you who continue to vote to return books to shelves as recommended by the review committees. Thank you.
Thank you.
Stop. I can probably talk to you nonstop for 30 minutes tonight, but I'll save some of my testimony this week in Columbia in favor of legislation supporting parental rights and traditional educational values. You talk about diversity if you don't practice it. The perfect example is district staff being paid with tax dollars. That office being dragged through the mud by the school district to support the far left political agenda to sexualize minor children. Influenced by over 12,000 parents in the state of South Carolina. You just don't see them. Keeping each other and supporting each other. You're all in the same path we have here today. I've learned a lot in the last 2 weeks. What I've learned most about is how far employees can actually go before they're disciplined. Give you a hint. Secret surveys. You'd be shocked to know a teacher can sexually exploit a child in the classroom. Kids are being told teachers and school counselors will keep secrets or not share anything with parents. The children are in grave danger from the inside of the school. Forget the bulletproof glass in your referendum project. Teachers and librarians are intentionally selecting material that is in violation of South Carolina statutes. They are also engaging in grooming behavior by exposing minor children to sexual material. HRS number 4 and 4.1 are both employee conduct policies that prohibit this type of behavior. My concern is no longer with the contents of the books. Those will go away faster than you think. My concern is with the law. You do not get a free pass. You're actually held to a higher standard as an educator because of your access to children for over 1,200 hours a year. Employee policies, employee contracts, federal law, state law, and case law. The storm is just starting. Board members, I compel you to take action immediately to ban secret surveys that tell students teachers and counselors will keep their secrets safe from parents. It's a pandemic worse than COVID. This behavior violates policy. Counselors do not get to claim patient confidentiality when handling a minor child. It's shameful behavior and it's illegal to do that. Minor children do not consent to any treatment. That's Title 63, Chapter 5, Section 340. Mr. Geyer, love you, man. Your comments and candor are infectious and highly entertaining. I wish I could take you serious, but after telling parents to pull our kids from public schools, I can't. Thank you all and have a good night. Thank you, Robin.
You're welcome.
All right, that concludes our meeting tonight. So we will adjourn by unanimous consent.
So moved.
So moved.